Where's my hand? There we go. See? Just random places. Worms, always worms, right? Always making worm castings, always making my soil better, turning all of that mulch slowly into good stuff that your plants can use. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I thought I'd do a short video this evening talking about worm castings and my take on whether this is a product worth buying. And for those of you that have followed my podcast and YouTube channel for a while, I think you're going to guess that I don't think it's worth the money. I don't think most of the things people try to sell you with regard to gardens are worth the money. And worm castings is right up there at the top. And why is that? Well, because if you've got a mulch on your soil and you've got healthy soil, then it's a place that worms want to be. And if there's worms in your soil and you've got a mulch on there, they got something to eat all the time, and they're eating it, and when they're done eating it, they're making castings. So I don't know why. And if you buy this stuff from a garden center, the price is out of this world, and I just don't know why you would put your energy, your money, all that sort of stuff into buying it when it seems to me it makes much more sense to make your garden a place worms want to be, so they can do worm things. And the most wormy thing a worm can do, besides having sex with other worms, is to make worm castings, to eat and poop, right? And make your soil better. So I thought I'd just take you around the garden here, and I'm just going to randomly jam my hands in the soil in different garden beds, and hopefully this works out and the garden doesn't make a liar of me and I haven't waited till too late in the evening to do this. Temperature wise, right now it's I think it's about 7 or 8 degrees Celsius outside right now. It's about 8 o'clock at night. So let's just have a look at the few beds and see if there's any worms around. Because if there's worms around, there's worm castings, and you don't need to buy worm castings if you've got worms. And if you've got healthy soil, you've got worms. Let's have a look. Here's a fairly well mulched bed, and I haven't done anything with this all season. Let's just pull back some of this mulch and see if there's any worms about. There's one right there. There's a worm. Let's say I was going to go fishing. And when I do go fishing, if I bring my kids, I usually like fly fishing, but when I bring the kids, I always grab a couple worms. There's another one, right? This is just the first place I grab some soil, so if I look around I can find some big ones and stuff, but just right there, right on the surface, and it's getting kind of cold, so I imagine a lot of them have gone down to the ground. But anyway, there's a couple little, they're not huge, but a couple tiny worms right there. Right? Just checking out this spot. My tulip garden, and I got some hay on here, and some seaweed and stuff. And I don't imagine we have to go too far to find a worm or two. There's a juvenile worm. There's one right there. These are all tiny worms, but they're everywhere. It doesn't matter that they're tiny, right? So you can see it right there. Right? Whoops. Yeah, right there. Right? It's not huge, but these are just like random places I'm checking, right? I don't have to. They're everywhere. I've got worms everywhere in my garden. Here's a garden where I grew, what did I grow here? Can't remember anyway. I grew the parsnips here last year. Got a couple maple trees from these leaves. But we don't have to go far below the mulch to spot a worm or two, I imagine. Yeah, there's one. There's two right there. Right. Couple little worms. Not huge, but again, it doesn't matter. They'll get huge. They're everywhere. Here's a garden I've been heating up with some plastic for the last few weeks. Let's pull some of this back and have a look and see if there's any worms here. Plan is to plant beans here, I think. Yep, there's a worm right there. There's another worm. Right. Where's my hand? There we go. See? Just random places. Worms, always worms, right? Always making worm castings, always making my soil better, turning all of that mulch slowly into good stuff that your plants can use. I wonder if there's a worm underneath this cardboard between my garden beds. There's one right there. Did he get away? I think he got away from me. I just saw one retreat into the soil. Let's check this side. Yep, there's one right there. Worm. Right? Underneath the cardboard there's a bit of mulch. And of course the worms are doing their thing with that mulch, turning it into good stuff. And it'll slowly find its way into the soil and find its way to my plant's roots for these parsnips, which I hope become big parsnips. Alright, so we had a look around and we saw some worms, and if there's worms in your garden, they're making worm castings and you don't need to buy them, and don't listen to anyone who's trying to sell them to you and they're trying to rip you off. At least that's my opinion on the matter. If you have soil that's really not performing well, I suppose that's one way you could enrich that soil by adding worm castings. You could also get something like horse manure, or there's a broad range of other things you could do. Or you can also just plant, if you have certain beds that aren't performing well, you can plant peas and beans in them and try to bring, that's a very undemanding plant to grow in a garden, and just put a good mulch on it, and next year it should be a lot better. There's lots of things you can do to bring soil up instead of being ripped off and spending money on something like worm castings, when you should put your energy into making your garden a place worms want to be. Let them, that's the whole idea of permaculture, right? Let the insects do all the work, right? You set the table, right? Provide the environment the worms like. Let them do all the work. Let them make the worm castings. And then you have to go buy it. You've got the most valuable garden amendment being made in your garden all the time. That makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you, and I hope that helped. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.